"She's not breathing," Maya Johnson gasped, her dark hands trembling as she performed CPR on the small body sprawled on the marble floor of the wedding venue's bathroom. The flower girl, no more than 6 years old, had choked on a piece of candy and collapsed moments before the ceremony was set to begin. As an event planner, Maya had handled countless crises, but never one where a child's life hung in the balance. The mother's agonized screams echoed against the ornate walls while the wedding guests gathered in horrified silence. Among them stood Ethan Blackwood, the billionaire tech mogul and best man, who now watched with uncharacteristic helplessness as this stranger, a woman he'd never seen before today, fought to save a life with the same determination with which he built empires. "Someone call 911, Maya ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. She continued compressions, refusing to give up even as seconds stretched into eternity. Just as the paramedics burst through the doors, the little girl coughed and gasped, color returning to her face. The room erupted in relieved sobs and applause, but Maya noticed only two things: the child's first breath and the penetrating gaze of the tall, imposing man in the bespoke suit who hadn't moved, hadn't looked away since the crisis began. His eyes held something beyond relief or gratitude, a recognition, as though he'd discovered something rare and unexpected in this woman he'd never met. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked across the room, and Maya felt a jolt of connection so profound it nearly made her step back. The intensity in his stare carried a question she couldn't decipher, but one that made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with the emergency she'd just handled. As the paramedics took over, Maya slipped back into her professional role, directing staff to reset the ceremony that would now be delayed. She was, after all, just the event planner, invisible to the wealthy guests once the crisis passed. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling of those eyes on her, couldn't forget the strange sensation that had passed between them. What she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that Ethan Blackwood never believed in love at first sight until this moment, and that his recognition came from somewhere deeper than attraction. She looked exactly like the woman from the recurring dream that had haunted him for years, a dream he'd told no one about, a premonition he'd dismissed as nonsense until he saw her kneeling on the floor, literally breathing life back into a dying child. The wedding proceeded an hour later than scheduled, with a slightly pale but smiling flower girl leading the procession. Maya worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring every detail was perfect despite the earlier chaos. From his position beside the groom, Ethan found his attention repeatedly drawn not to the bride, his best friend's sister, but to the efficient woman in the simple black dress who orchestrated the event with quiet authority. Their paths crossed briefly during the reception when Maya approached to confirm a change in the evening's timeline. "Mr. Blackwood, we've adjusted the schedule for your toast. You'll speak after the father of the bride in approximately 20 minutes, she informed him professionally, her clipboard clutched to her chest like armor. "You saved that child's life," he replied, ignoring the schedule entirely. "I didn't catch your name." "Maya Johnson, I'm just doing my job," she said, though saving children was certainly not in her event planning contract. "No one just does CPR like that," Ethan said, his voice lowered. "You've had training." She hesitated, surprised by his observation. "I was a paramedic before I started my company, Old Habits." "From saving lives to planning parties, that's quite a career change." His tone wasn't judgmental, merely curious. "Planning weddings pays better than emergency services, and I needed the money." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. "I should get back to work." As she turned to leave, Ethan caught her wrist, the contact sending an unexpected current between them. "Have dinner with me tomorrow." It wasn't a question, and Maya bristled at his presumption. "I don't date clients, Mr. Blackwood." "I'm not your client, Aisha is." "Same difference, besides, men like you don't date women like me." She gently pulled her wrist away. His eyebrows rose. "Men like me. Billionaires, you date supermodels and socialites, not event planners from Southside Chicago." "You don't know me," he said quietly. "And you don't know me, that's my point." Maya straightened her shoulders. "Now if you'll excuse me, I have a wedding to run." As she walked away, Ethan watched her, fascinated by her dismissal. People didn't say no to him, not in business, not in his personal life. Yet this woman had done exactly that without hesitation. What she didn't realize was that her refusal had only strengthened his determination. There was something about her that called to him on a level he couldn't explain, something beyond her striking beauty or the quiet confidence with which she moved through the world. He needed to understand why he felt he knew her, why the dream that had visited him for years suddenly had a face, a name: Maya Johnson. What Maya couldn't have known was that her event planning company, Johnson Events, had recently appeared on a list of potential acquisitions for Blackwood Industries' new hospitality division. Ethan had reviewed the file just days before the wedding, impressed by the company's reputation but unaware of its owner. Now, fate had placed her directly in his path, creating a complication he hadn't anticipated. Business and pleasure rarely mixed well in his experience, yet he couldn't ignore the strange sense of destiny that had settled over him since the moment he saw her performing CPR on that child. The reception continued into the night, a glittering success despite the earlier drama. Maya moved efficiently through the crowd, invisible to most guests as she coordinated with staff and vendors. She noticed Ethan watching her throughout the evening but managed to avoid another direct encounter. It was only when the bride and groom prepared to depart that they crossed paths again. "Maya," Aisha called, stunning in her wedding gown, "you're a miracle worker. Everything was perfect, even after, well, you know," she hugged Maya impulsively. "James and I can't thank you enough." "It was my pleasure," Maya replied warmly. "I'm so happy for you both." "Ethan tells me you saved Lily's life," James said, joining them. "That goes way beyond your contract." Maya felt Ethan's presence before she saw him, a prickling awareness that made her pulse quicken. "Anyone would have done the same," she demurred. "Not true," Ethan said, stepping into their circle. "Most people freeze in emergencies. You didn't hesitate." Before Maya could respond, Aisha's expression brightened with sudden inspiration. "Maya, you should come to the villa. We have that extra guest house, and honestly, after all this, you deserve a vacation." "Villa?" Maya asked, confused. "Our honeymoon," James explained. "We've rented a compound in the Maldives, multiple villas, private beach. Ethan's joining us for the first week, business mixed with pleasure." Maya's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Oh, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't possibly." "I insist," Aisha interrupted. "Consider it a bonus. Besides, I might need your expertise for the dinner party we're hosting for some local dignitaries." Maya glanced at Ethan, whose expression revealed nothing. "I have other events scheduled," she said weakly. "Your assistant mentioned you're actually clear for the next 2 weeks," Aisha countered, clearly having done her homework. "Please say yes. After today, I consider you family." Trapped by the bride's enthusiasm and genuine gratitude, Maya found herself agreeing to what was clearly a terrible idea. 1 week in paradise, in close quarters with a man who unsettled her in ways she didn't want to examine. A man who represented everything she'd learned to be wary of: wealth, privilege, and the power to upend lives with a single decision. What Maya didn't know as she reluctantly accepted the invitation was that Ethan had already made a decision that would change her life forever. The acquisition of Johnson Events was now a personal priority, though his reasons had shifted from purely business to something far more complicated. And as he watched her smile and nod to Aisha's excited planning, he felt a twinge of guilt for the secret he carried, one that would either bring them together or drive them permanently apart. The Maldives greeted Maya with breathtaking beauty, crystal waters stretching to the horizon, white sand beaches, and luxury beyond anything she'd ever experienced. The compound consisted of 5 overwater villas connected by wooden walkways, each more spectacular than the last. Maya's accommodations, though designated as the guest house, would have been featured in travel magazines for its elegance and stunning views. "This is the guest house," she murmured in awe as a staff member showed her around the sprawling space. "The smallest of the villas," the attendant confirmed with a smile. "Mr. Blackwood arranged for your upgrade from the originally planned accommodation." Maya frowned. "Mr. Blackwood did?" "Yes, miss. He specifically requested you have this villa with the sunrise view." After unpacking her hastily assembled vacation wardrobe, woefully inadequate for this level of luxury, Maya ventured onto her private deck. The late afternoon sun cast golden light across the water, creating a scene so perfect it almost seemed artificial. She was so absorbed in the view that she didn't notice Ethan approaching along the walkway until he was nearly at her villa. "Does it meet with your approval?" he asked, his deep voice startling her. Maya turned, taking in his casual transformation. Gone was the formal suit, replaced by linen pants and a simple white shirt that somehow looked more expensive than her entire wardrobe. "It's beautiful," she admitted, "but unnecessary. I would have been fine with more modest accommodations." "There's nothing modest about this place," he said with a slight smile. "That's rather the point." "Is that supposed to impress me, that you can afford to waste money on extravagance?" His smile faded. "That's not what I meant." Maya sighed, regretting her sharpness. "I'm sorry, I feel out of place here." "Because you think you don't belong in my world," he stated. "I don't." Ethan stepped closer, his expression serious. "Maya, there's something I need to tell you." The intensity in his voice alarmed her. "What is it?" I know who you are, I knew before the wedding. Maya's confusion was evident. I don't understand. Johnson Events has been on my acquisition list for the past month. I've reviewed your company's financials, your business model, your growth projections. The blood drained from Maya's face as his words sank in. Her small but successful company had been struggling recently after a major client defaulted on payment, leaving her cash flow precarious. An acquisition could save her business or destroy everything she'd built, depending on the terms. You're buying my company, she whispered, feeling suddenly vulnerable. Is that what this is about? The villa, the invitation, you're softening me up for a business deal? No, Ethan said firmly. The acquisition consideration came first, yes, but seeing you at the wedding, watching you save that child's life, that had nothing to do with business. Then what did it have to do with? Maya demanded. Ethan hesitated, clearly struggling with something he couldn't articulate. I don't know how to explain this without sounding insane, he finally said. Try me. I've dreamed about you, he said simply. For years, a woman I'd never met with your face, your eyes. The first time was the night my parents died, a dream where you were pulling someone from danger. When I saw you performing CPR on that little girl, it was like watching my dream come to life. Maya stared at him speechless. This was the last thing she'd expected, not a business proposition, but something far more disturbing. That's not possible. I know how it sounds, but I can't ignore it, and neither can you. There was something between us the moment our eyes met. You felt it too. The worst part was that she had felt it, a connection, a recognition that defied logic. But Maya prided herself on being practical, not someone who believed in mystical connections or prophetic dreams. This is crazy, she said, backing away. You don't know me. I want to, he said quietly. And my company, were you planning to mention that before or after trying to get me into bed? Anger flashed in his eyes. That's unfair. I have no intention of using the acquisition as leverage. Then why bring it up at all? Because I don't want secrets between us. There is no us, Mr. Blackwood. Maya's voice was cold. I'm here as Aisha's guest, nothing more. Whatever you think you felt or dreamed, it has nothing to do with me. She turned to go inside, needing distance from this conversation and the unsettling feelings it evoked. Ethan's next words stopped her. Your company is 3 months from insolvency. Maya froze, her hand on the door. You don't know that. I do. My team is very thorough. The Westfield contract default left you overextended. You've been covering payroll from your personal savings. She turned slowly, fury replacing shock. You had no right to dig into my personal finances. Standard acquisition procedure, he said, though his expression showed regret. Maya, I can help you, no strings attached. There are always strings, she said bitterly. Always, men like you don't give something for nothing. Something shifted in Ethan's gaze, a hardening, a retreat behind walls she hadn't realized had lowered. You've made your opinion of men like me quite clear, but you don't know me, Maya. You don't know what I've lost, what I've sacrificed. And you don't know what I've overcome to build my company, she countered. I won't let you or anyone else take it from me. I never said anything about taking it from you. His voice had cooled to match his expression. My offer would have kept you at the helm, with resources to grow beyond what you could achieve alone. But clearly, you've already decided I'm the villain in this story. The gulf between them seemed to widen with every word. Two strangers from different worlds, connected by a thread neither fully understood, both too wounded by past experiences to trust the pull they felt toward each other. Enjoy your stay, Ms. Johnson, Ethan said formally. I'll make sure you're not disturbed again. As he walked away, Maya felt a strange sense of loss, as though she'd just closed a door that was never meant to be shut. She told herself it was for the best. Dreams and mysterious connections aside, the reality was that their worlds were incompatible. He was right about her company's finances. She was barely staying afloat. But she'd rather sink fighting than be rescued by a man who made her feel things she couldn't control. That night, Maya dreamed of drowning. In the dream, she was sinking in crystal blue waters, lungs burning, when strong hands pulled her to the surface. She woke gasping for breath, the image of Ethan's face still vivid in her mind. Outside her window, the first hint of dawn brightened the horizon, the sunrise view he'd specifically requested for her. 3 days passed in a strange dance of avoidance. The compound was large enough that Maya rarely encountered Ethan, except during meals with Aisha and James. Even then, their interaction remained coolly polite, giving no hint of their confrontation. Maya threw herself into helping Aisha plan the dinner party, grateful for the distraction from her financial worries and the unsettling awareness that followed her wherever Ethan was nearby. On the fourth morning, Maya rose early to swim before breakfast. The lagoon was peaceful, the water warm and clear as she cut through it with practiced strokes. She'd grown up swimming in Lake Michigan. Water had always been her sanctuary. So absorbed was she in the rhythm of her swimming that she didn't notice how far she'd ventured from the villas until a sudden cramp seized her leg. Pain shot through her calf, intense enough to make her gasp and swallow water. She tried to tread water, but the cramp worsened, pulling her under. Panic rose as she struggled to surface, her limbs not responding as they should. In that moment of terror, Maya thought of Ethan's dream of her pulling someone from danger. The irony wasn't lost on her as darkness edged her vision. Then strong arms were around her, lifting her toward the light. Her head broke the surface, and she gulped air desperately, still fighting against the pain in her leg. "I've got you," Ethan's voice said close to her ear. "Stop fighting, let me help you." Too weak to argue, Maya allowed him to support her as he swam them both back toward the nearest villa, his own. By the time they reached his deck, the cramp had eased, but Maya was shaking from adrenaline and the lingering fear of how close she'd come to drowning. Ethan lifted her easily onto the deck, then pulled himself up beside her. For a moment they both lay there breathing heavily, the warm boards rough against their skin. "Are you okay?" he finally asked, turning to look at her. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. She was acutely aware of her body in the modest one-piece swimsuit, water dripping from her natural curls that had escaped their tie during the struggle. "What happened?" Ethan asked, sitting up. "Leg cramp," she managed. "I swam too far out, thank you for saving you." There was no smugness in his tone, only concern. "Yes," she met his eyes reluctantly. "How did you know?" "I was on my deck, saw you swimming, then suddenly you weren't." He ran a hand through his wet hair. "I didn't think, just dove in." Maya struggled to sit up, wincing as her calf muscle protested. Ethan noticed immediately. "You're still in pain, let me help." Before she could object, he moved to her feet and took her leg in his hands. His touch was gentle but firm as he massaged the cramped muscle, his fingers working with unexpected skill. "Where did you learn that?" she asked, trying to distract herself from the intimacy of his touch. "Sports medicine rotation during my undergraduate years, before I dropped out to start my first company." His hands continued their ministrations, gradually easing the knot in her muscle. "I wanted to be a doctor once." The revelation surprised her. What happened? A shadow crossed his face. Life, death, priorities shifted. There was a story there, one Maya suddenly wanted to hear. But before she could ask, the sliding door to Ethan's villa opened, and a tall, elegant blonde woman stepped onto the deck. She wore a silk robe that left little to the imagination, her expression shifting from surprise to something colder as she took in the scene before her. "Ethan, darling, I was wondering where you disappeared to." Her eyes raked over Maya dismissively. "I see you've been playing lifeguard." Maya felt as though she'd been doused with ice water. Of course he wasn't alone here. Men like Ethan Blackwood didn't vacation without companionship, even on their friends' honeymoons. "Vanessa," Ethan acknowledged, his hands falling away from Maya's leg. "Ms. Johnson had a swim cramp. I happened to see her struggling." The formality in his voice was new, and Maya didn't miss the way his expression closed off. She struggled to her feet, dignity warring with embarrassment. "I should go," she said, not meeting either of their gazes. "Thank you again, Mr. Blackwood." "Maya," Ethan began, but she was already moving past him, limping slightly as she made her way to the walkway that would take her back to her own villa. Behind her, she heard the woman, Vanessa, say something in a low, amused voice, followed by Ethan's curt response. Maya didn't slow down to listen. The message was clear enough. Whatever moment they'd shared was over, interrupted by reality in the form of a gorgeous woman in a silk robe. Back in her villa, Maya showered quickly and changed, trying to process what had just happened. The near drowning had shaken her more than she wanted to admit, as had Ethan's rescue and the tender way he'd attended to her cramped muscle. For a brief moment, she glimpsed something in him beyond the billionaire businessman, vulnerability, perhaps even regret. Then Vanessa had appeared, shattering the illusion that there could ever be anything meaningful between them. Maya's phone chimed with a text from Aisha, asking if she'd join them for a boat excursion to a nearby island. The thought of facing Ethan and his, whatever Vanessa was, made her stomach churn, but staying alone with her thoughts seemed equally unappealing. As she contemplated her response, another text arrived, this one from an unknown number. "Vanessa is my sister-in-law, my brother's widow, not what you think, E." Maya stared at the message, emotions warring within her. Relief that Vanessa wasn't his lover competed with embarrassment over her obvious jealousy and confusion about why he felt the need to explain. Before she could decide how to respond, a knock came at her door. When she opened it, Ethan stood there, changed into dry clothes but with his hair still damp from the ocean. "You left before I could explain," he said without preamble. "You don't owe me an explanation," Maya replied, though her heart raced at his presence. "Maybe not, but I want to give you one anyway." His gaze was steady, challenging. "May I come in?" Against her better judgment, Maya stepped aside. As Ethan entered her villa, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was admitting him to more than just her temporary living space. She was letting him past defenses she'd spent years building. "Vanessa was married to my older brother Michael," Ethan began without waiting for her to speak. "He died 3 years ago, plane crash, my private plane, which I'd insisted he use for a business trip while mine was being serviced." The pain in his voice was unmistakable, raw enough that Maya felt it like a physical thing between them. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "Vanessa blames me, so do my parents. So do I." He moved to the window, looking out at the ocean that had nearly claimed Maya's life an hour earlier. "She's here because James and Aisha thought it would be good for us to reconnect as family. Their intentions were good, but some wounds don't heal just because people want them to," Maya finished for him. Ethan turned, surprised by her understanding. "Exactly. Vanessa and I tolerate each other in public, maintain the fiction of family unity for the sake of my parents. In private, it's complicated." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw your face when she appeared, what you thought." He stepped closer, close enough that Maya had to tilt her head to maintain eye contact. "I don't want you to misunderstand who I am or what I want." "And what do you want, Ethan?" The question came out barely above a whisper. His gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. The tension between them was palpable, a living thing that seemed to vibrate with each heartbeat. Just as he began to lean toward her, a loud knocking interrupted the moment. "Maya, are you ready?" Aisha's voice called cheerfully from outside. "The boat's waiting." Reality crashed back, breaking whatever spell had been building between them. Maya stepped back, creating distance as she called out, "Just a minute." To Ethan, she said quietly, "We should go, they're waiting." Something like frustration crossed his features before he nodded. "This conversation isn't finished," he said, his tone making it clear this was a promise, not a question. As they joined the others on the dock, James, Aisha, Vanessa, and two of James's college friends who had arrived the previous day, Maya couldn't help noticing the speculative glances Aisha sent between her and Ethan. Something told her their hostess had orchestrated this entire situation, from the invitation to the Maldives to the convenient interruption just now. What Maya couldn't determine was whether Ethan was complicit in the matchmaking or as much a target as she was. The day unfolded in a blur of tropical beauty, snorkeling in a coral reef, lunch on a deserted beach, champagne flowing freely as the sun climbed high above them. Maya found herself actually enjoying the excursion, drawn into the easy camaraderie of the group despite Vanessa's occasional barbed comments. Ethan remained nearby throughout the day, his attention never far from Maya even when they weren't directly interacting. It was during the return journey, with the sun setting in a spectacular display of color, that Maya found herself alone with Vanessa at the stern of the boat. The others were gathered at the bow, engrossed in James's animated retelling of their honeymoon adventures thus far. "He's different around you," Vanessa said abruptly, her gaze fixed on Ethan's distant figure. Maya tensed, unsure how to respond. "I barely know him." "That's what makes it so interesting." Vanessa sipped her champagne, studying Maya over the rim of her glass. "Ethan doesn't open up to anyone, not since Michael died, yet with you, a woman he met days ago, he's more himself than I've seen in years." "I don't know what you mean," Maya said carefully. Vanessa's laugh held little humor. "Of course you do. You saved a child's life, then nearly lost your own, both events involving Ethan as a witness or participant. If I believed in fate, I might find it significant." The comment struck too close to Ethan's talk of dreams and recognition. "Do you," Maya asked, "believe in fate?" Something vulnerable flickered in Vanessa's eyes before her mask of sophistication returned. "I believed my fate was to grow old with Michael. Life taught me otherwise." Before Maya could respond, Vanessa continued, her voice lower. "Whatever is happening between you and Ethan, be careful. He carries guilt like armor. It protects him, but it also isolates him. Breaking through might hurt you both." With that cryptic warning, Vanessa moved away, rejoining the others and leaving Maya with more questions than answers. As the boat approached the compound, Maya found herself watching Ethan with new eyes. noticing the weight he seemed to carry in his shoulders, the way his smile never quite reached his eyes except in rare moments when he forgot to guard himself. What had begun as a simple attraction complicated by business interests had evolved into something far more complex. Maya sensed that understanding Ethan Blackwood would require her to confront not only his ghosts but her own, the fears and insecurities that had kept her from trusting, from risking her heart since her father's abandonment years ago. The boat docked just as night fell completely, the compound lit with thousands of twinkling lights that reflected in the calm water like earthbound stars. As the group disembarked, Ethan hung back, waiting for Maya. "Walk with me," he asked quietly. Maya hesitated, Vanessa's warning fresh in her mind. Yet something stronger than caution pulled her toward him, the same recognition that had sparked between them at the wedding, a connection she couldn't explain but couldn't deny either. "Okay," she agreed. They followed the illuminated walkway in silence, passing the other villas until they reached a small pavilion at the far end of the compound. The structure stood over the water, open on all sides to the gentle breeze and starry sky. "I come here to think," Ethan said as they entered the peaceful space. "It reminds me how small we all are in the grand scheme of things." Maya moved to the railing, looking out at the vastness of the ocean and sky. "It's beautiful." "Maya," Ethan said, his voice serious, "there's something I need to tell you about your company." Her body tensed immediately. "What about it?" "I've withdrawn the acquisition offer." Of all the things she'd expected him to say, this wasn't one of them. "Why? Because I refused you." "No," he seemed hurt by the accusation. "Because acquiring it would always stand between us. You'd always wonder if my interest in you was genuine or strategic." "Is there an us to stand between?" Maya asked, her heart pounding. Ethan moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body in the cool night air. "I think there could be, if you're willing to find out." "I'm still 3 months from insolvency," she reminded him, practical even as her pulse raced. "Without the acquisition, my company might not survive." "I know," he reached for her hand, his touch sending electricity up her arm. "That's the other thing I wanted to tell you. I've arranged for Johnson Events to be the exclusive event planner for all Blackwood Industries corporate functions for the next 2 years. The contract should stabilize your finances while preserving your independence." Maya stared at him, speechless. It was the perfect solution, a legitimate business arrangement that would save her company without requiring her to surrender control. "Why would you do that?" "Because I respect what you've built," he said simply. "And because I want to know you, Maya Johnson, without business complications between us." The sincerity in his voice broke something open inside her, a wall she'd maintained for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "I don't know what this is between us," she admitted. "It doesn't make sense, we're too different." "Are we?" Ethan's hand moved to her face, gently tilting her chin up. "We both built something from nothing, we both know loss, we both save people in our different ways." "Your dream," Maya said softly, "the one where I was saving someone, what else happened in it?" Ethan's eyes darkened with an emotion she couldn't name. "I was drowning," he said, his voice barely audible above the sound of waves. "Not in water but in grief, you pulled me back to life." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Maya understood then that this wasn't just about attraction or coincidence. Whatever force had drawn them together carried purpose, a healing neither of them had known they needed. "I'm not sure I can save you," she whispered. "Maybe we can save each other," he replied. As the distance between them closed, Maya felt a sense of inevitability, as though every choice in her life had led to this moment, this man. Their lips met in a kiss that started gently but quickly deepened, carrying the weight of recognition and longing neither had been able to express in words. In that kiss, Maya understood what Vanessa had tried to warn her about, the power Ethan's pain held, the depth of his capacity for both guilt and love. She also recognized her own fear of trusting, of believing that someone would choose her for herself, not for what she could provide or become. When they finally broke apart, breathless and changed, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "I've been waiting for you," he said, "without even knowing it was you I was waiting for." Maya closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the perfection of the moment and the terrifying vulnerability it created. "I'm still not sure this can work," she admitted. "Our worlds are so different." "Then we'll create a new world," Ethan said with the confidence of a man accustomed to bending reality to his vision. "Together." As they stood there under the vast canopy of stars, Maya allowed herself to believe, not just in the connection between them, but in the possibility that love could transcend the boundaries of class, experience, and expectation. That sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind cannot explain, and the bravest choice is to follow where it leads. What neither of them realized as they began their journey together that night was that their story would inspire countless others to believe in unexpected connections and second chances. That sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin in the most unlikely places, even at your best friend's sister's wedding, when you least expect your life to change forever. In the years that followed, whenever someone asked how they met, they would share a look that contained a private universe of understanding. Because some things can't be explained, only experienced. Some bonds form instantly, defying logic and background and circumstance. Some souls simply recognize each other across time and space, finding their way home in a single moment of connection. If you've ever felt that inexplicable pull towards someone, that sense of recognition that transcends reason, perhaps you understand. Perhaps like Maya and Ethan, you know that the heart sometimes sees what is invisible to the eye, creating bridges between worlds that seemed impossibly far apart. And in that understanding lies the most profound truth of all, that love, in its purest form, doesn't care about where you came from, only where you're going together.